The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beast wheel to wheel around the hallowed grounds. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet. Perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of the early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series, presented by Sim Experience, starts now.
The Lionheart Retro Series has had it all in 2021. The thrills of victory, the agony of defeat, but with 5 races left, 3 drivers have put themselves in prime position to be crowned a Lionheart King. Matt Taylor has won 3 times this season, most recently last time out at the Worldwide Technology Raceway to give him a 60-point advantage over Aaron Morgan and Mike Rasmussen. We head, though, to the Wolverine State for one more super speedway before 3 consecutive row races that will build to our double points finale at the Auto Club Speedway. Today's race might be the tipping point in the title fight. This is Michigan, and this is the Karnox Michigan 200 presented by Espo Design. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined alongside in the racespottv commentary booth by Andrew Kinsella, with TV cameras designed by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/timing, courtesy of our partners at ATVO. follow along with your favorite team and driver in the virtual world. Let's dive straight into our HyperX pre-race show because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. Andrew, it's been a while since the Retro Series was in action. That was at the Worldwide Technology Raceway at the beginning of the month of September. We're here at the end of the month at the Michigan International Raceway for what's going to be an action-packed affair. The first time these drivers are going to have to contend with the new update to the Lotus 79.
Yeah, this should be a fascinating race tonight, Arjuna. Michigan, high banks, lots of drama, lots of drafting, and most importantly, lots of speed. We're going to have a fascinating race in front of us, but I'm also looking at that schedule. 3 really unique road courses coming up. It's going to be very key, especially for some of the drivers who are better on the ovals than the road courses. If they want to stay in this championship fight, tonight is the night to try and score some points.
I love this schedule coming up. Silverstone, Long Beach, Road America. I mean, you've got the streets of Long Beach, which, yes, is a thriller in and of itself, but Silverstone, one of the classic homes of British motorsport. Then you got Road America, track with so much history and heritage when it comes to American open wheel racing. That will see our penultimate race of the season, all building to that double points finale at the Auto Club Speedway, the final of our Triple Crown affairs. Let's take a look then at the driver standings presented by the SimXperience AccuForce Pro V2 steering system. And well, 60 points is the advantage that Matt Taylor leads, but it is now over his teammate Aaron Morgan, who has jumped his way up into second. Mike Rasmus has then therefore dropped to third, but all 3 drivers have been consistent over the course of the season, and consistency wins you championships, Andrew. They're going to be hoping that this race, we were talking before we came on air about Motegi being a race that's fairly similar in the type of action that we're going to see here. But they'll be hoping they can survive the chaos. I wouldn't be surprised if they play it smart on the start, hang further back than maybe we'd expect.
Yeah, this is going to be a fascinating race to see how these 3 drivers attack it. Matt Taylor, he's leading your oval championship right now, but he's P4 on the road. Aaron Morgan, he's leading your road championship, but he's P9 on the ovals. And Mike Rasmus is P2 in both of those categories. So if you look at it, if I'm Matt Taylor, if I'm Mike Rasmus, this is the one that I'm circling here to try and make up some positions. Because Aaron Morgan, Mike Rasmus, we know that they are strong on the road. So Matt Taylor, in particular, needs to have a good result here. And with that chaotic nature of this track, as you mentioned, it's going to be very key that he stays out of trouble here today.
And look at the blanket separating Chris Fowler through Michael O'Brien, 4th through 7th. Just 16 points between them. Great to see 3 rookies in that battle. David Sirra has been hot and cold. He's really started to warm himself up to the ovals recently. Pole position last couple of rounds as well for him. Let's see what the Lavoie Motorsports machine can do in that championship hunt. Let's take a look then at the rookie standings. These are not the correct rookie standings, so we'll quickly then talk about your team standings before we take a look at that rookie championship. The team standings presented by HyperX and Avatar Auto Racing. Michael O'Brien, Aaron Morgan, Matt Taylor. Those are the 3 guys who have been ultra consistent this season and, well, almost 500 points clear. I mean, Andrew, they don't have to do much to wrap this championship up before we even get to the final round of this championship.
It's been a dominant season from Avatar Auto Racing. You have P1 and P2 in the championship. It's very, very hard to come out on top when you're that dominant throughout this season. But I'm looking at P2, 3, and 4. We have the next 3 positions are only covered by 26 points here, Arjuna. Even though it's not fighting for the top, there's still a lot to fight for between Graphics, LC Motorsports, AeroX Racing, and Lavoie Motorsport. And
so talk to us a little about how the point system works here, Andrew. 60 points to our race winner, all the way down, I think, to points to those who finish. How is that going to affect the championship as we look at these team standings?
It really means that every point from here on out counts, especially for those next few drivers after Avatar Auto Racing. You need to make sure that you're maximizing your positions, finishing the race most importantly, and maximizing your team's points at every opportunity. But particularly at a place like this where it is a little bit unpredictable, staying out of trouble is going to be key for each of those 3 teams and their drivers.
And so we'll take a look at the series details before we get to our rookie points. The series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. And don't forget to use the promo code Minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. It is the 5th season that sees the Lotus 79 trotted around some of the historic homes of motorsports, one of the historic cars on the iRacing service as well. But drivers have to contend with a fixed setup. That always makes things interesting as they fight for their share of $7,000. And like I mentioned right off the bat, Andrew, drivers have had a couple of weeks to get themselves accustomed to this new setup, new tire update to this car. Talk to us a little bit about it as the setup man for the Lionheart series.
Yeah, so the Lotus 79 has received a little bit of a tire update. It wasn't a huge update, probably not as big as some of these drivers were thinking, but what you'll see here today, Arjuna, is that the tires have a little bit more play in them, especially over the bumps and on these high banks. It's much more prone to maybe moving up and moving around on the track as they go around, especially over the bumps. And then the other thing is that it's a much more catchable tire now. Before we saw that if you got loose, it was very hard to catch it, even in the oval trim, and the car would almost hook as you were trying to avoid someone else, and it could cause more and more carnage as an incident unfolded. That's gone away just a little bit here. It's just a little bit more catchable. You can have a little bit more of the sudden movements, and it's not going to upset the car as much. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these drivers adapt, if they're going to give each other a little bit more space with the car moving around a little bit more. But it's going to be a very interesting race here today to see how these drivers adapt as the race unfolds.
And so knowledge base very much reset for all the drivers heading into this one. They've had to work out the tire, work themselves into a comfortable spot to build themselves into this race. Here are your rookie standings presented by buttkicker, the wonders of live broadcasting. We managed to get that fixed up for you. Well, Matt Taylor leads the championship, leads the rookie standings as well, and, well, not much of a fight between him and Chris Fowler for now, but David Sirwart, Michael O'Brien chasing down the Aero-X racing car. Always good to see them in action. Nick DeGroot, Alex Guyon, Ariel Alanis, Craig Forsyth, Jean-Francois Matt, and DJ Clark to complete the top 10 here. DJ Clark, after a podium at our season opener, has kind of struggled since then, but always fun to see the GSRC commentator out on the track. Let's talk then a little bit about the return to the Wolverine State, a Lionheart staple that has seen all 3 of the Lionheart competitions visit this very track. We saw an entertaining buttkicker US 500 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, now builds to the Lotus 79s, the finals competition within the Lionheart body to head to this track. 4 races, 4 winners, and interestingly, given the type of racing that we're going to see, Dustin Wardlow, the Candyman, has led the most laps in the last couple of years, but no victory to his name. Let's see what he can do here today, but look at those margins of victory, Andrew. I mean, just over 0.2 of a second. That was back in season 1. A couple of years ago, 0.002 of a second. It is going to be crazy, and you were saying that before we came on air, the most separated we're going to see these cars is when they come to a green flag, whether it be on the initial start, whether it be on a restart.
Absolutely. Those margins of victory really says it all, Arjuna. 0.2 of a second is the largest margin of victory in 4 times, and this race is shaping up to be just the exact same thing. The new tire model has not changed how close these cars race here at the high banks of Michigan. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch today. We're going to have a very tight finish, I'm predicting, and this should be a good one.
Oh, I can't wait. I've been waiting for this one since, well, September 2nd when we left the Worldwide Technology Raceway. So let's talk a little bit about the high banks here. Just a 2-mile track. When I say just 2 miles, it's going to be very high speed. Average speed probably in excess on a flying lap of 200 miles an hour, and that's without the addition of the draft. 18 degrees of banking. So when we say it's high banks, Andrew, give these viewers a perspective of what that means in an open wheel machine where, you know, the amount of G that drivers would face in the real world is mind-boggling to say the least.
Yeah, you really don't get a good sense of just how banked this track is until you go screaming into turn 1 at almost 200 miles an hour in a car that was built in 1978, and you realize that you're going 200 miles an hour, and you just see this wall that is stretching around this corner that's sort of going off into this the other side, and you don't even see where the exit is. All you see is this wall of asphalt staring at you. And it's intimidating, but it's also a lot of fun to drive. There's a lot of different lines that can be taken around this track. There are seams that create bumps in the track. As you cross these different lines, it creates a very, very difficult race for these drivers, because not only will they have to deal with the traffic, but they have to deal with the track as well. And it can be a place that will definitely bite you if you make a wrong move here.
And so qualifying underway to give you an indication of what the lap record is, at least in qualifying trim. In the real world, that was set by Paul Tracy back in 2000, so almost 21 years ago. 234 miles an hour, the average speed on that lap. Absolutely insane. We're looking at lap times about 7 seconds slower than that Aaron Morgan provisional pole, exactly what he needs in his championship hunt. Only 14 cars have set qualifying lap times, though plenty of drivers still yet to come. Here is one that, of course, has been hot and cold in qualifying, both here in retro competition, but of course in other Lionheart races, as Chris Fowler. David Sirois now pips Chris Fowler. The times are coming in thick and fast. I said Sirois figuring out something on the ovals. He's really getting more and more comfortable with them. Look at the line that Matt Taylor is taking, though, Andrew. He's building up his speed, building up his momentum. Is he going to come down low on that first lap?
Yeah, I think he should stay high this first lap, Arjuna. It's going to be definitely a second lap is going to be the faster one here. What you need to be doing here is eliminating as much scrub as possible. You want to get absolutely the last 1/10 of a mile an hour that you can on this first lap to start, and then you can focus on trying to pinch it down just that little bit on that second lap, keeping it nice and tight to the bottom, and that's where you'll get your speed, is carrying this momentum through turn 3, through turn 4, and you'll start to see him just as he comes toward the line here. He's going to go right down to the bottom to start this second lap.
And so this is the important one. Actually goes below the apron, which you can do. Not so bumpy here at Michigan, at least compared to some of the other tracks we visited. Taylor comes up a little bit to arc himself into the corner. 17th provisionally. Also saw David Rodriguez. Still believe his fuel tank is under investigation for his miraculous fuel saving at Iowa. He's gone up to provisional 3rd. But here we go. Taylor 22 seconds and counting as he's entering turn 3. Look at him try and minimize that steering angle with 60 seconds left on the qualifying clock. Isaac Snyder to 16th position. Taylor trying to cut the distance as best as possible. Over the bumps he goes. Is it good enough? It's a 37.842. It's not pole. It will be 9th position for Matt Taylor. He'll have some work to do, but in what we expect to be a frenetic race, qualifying position, not the be-all, end-all.
Yeah, just a couple of small mistakes there from Taylor. When he hit those bumps under the apron, it just cost him a little bit of speed. There was a little bit, maybe a little bit too much play on the steering wheel, and he was just scrubbing just that little bit of speed. As we see George Anzaldo coming in as one of the final few here to turn a qualifying lap.
He's not going to have time to finish this one, is he?
No, I don't think he is. No, I was assuming he was on a lap, but it turns out he was just beginning his lap, and I think he's going to run out of time here, Arjuna.
Well, qualifying is done. Let's go trackside then in the Wolverine State to take a look at our starting grid for round 14 in the Lionheart Retro Series. So here is your butt kicker starting grid, a second career Retro Series pole for the Canadian David Sirois. Alongside will be Chris Fowler in the 20 car. He's had some bad luck in these sorts of races throughout the season. Thinking back to Indianapolis in particular, what can Fowler do on the outside of the front row? David Rodriguez for RSR Esports, alongside a title contender in Aaron Morgan. Dustin Wardlow has led the most laps in each of the last 2 races at this track, but no victory to his name. What can he do from 5th? Chris Reagan completes the top 6 on the grid. Trevor Malone, the teal 34, inside of Danny Roberts. Teal and red, very simple liveries, but always distinctive out on the track. While our championship leader, Matt Taylor, lines up in 9th. Paul Jenkins will complete the top 10. Craig Forsyth and Mike Rasmas, row number 6. Rasmas, close to one of his championship rivals, about 1/10 off the pace. Exactly 1/10 off the pace is Alex Guyon, Lavoie Motorsports in 1st, Lavoie Motorsports in 13th. Isaac Snyder in the pink and blue will be alongside Nick DeGroot, Robert Mikes 15th and 16th. DJ Clark in 17th alongside Ariel Alanis to share row number 9, while Ron Hacker and Ricky Harding complete the top 20, Hardin, the first of the cars not to set a qualifying lap time. George Anzaldo, Chris Lanini 21st and 22nd, Chris Staples in 23rd, while I believe Michael O'Brien with an end-of-line penalty will be starting from the tail end of the field. Richie Hearn, always a bit of dodgy internet for the former IndyCar competitor. See what he will do and how careful he's going to be to start this race off. It's a long 100-lap race. Plenty of time to make some moves. Tyler Groff not on track. He'll be in race control instead. We'll get the word from race control over the course of this race. As always then, we have onboard looks with a number of the drivers. So while we wait for the cars to grid on up and roll themselves off a pit road, let's take a look then at our featured onboards. Chris Fowler has the HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Ricky Hardin has the -273 on board. The premier name in karting gloves, visit -273.biz. And Alex Guyon has the Clipping That Apex onboard camera. Your home for custom motorsports art. Visit Clipping That Apex for more information. So 100 laps here at the Michigan International Speedway. Andrew, it's time for some predictions, and well, I'll let you go first, because I'm going to be honest, any one of these 25 cars could really win here today.
That's very true, Arjuna. Predicting this one is going to be very, very difficult. That being said, I do think that Matt Taylor is going to be the one to watch here today. He's starting fairly close to the front, not as close to the front, though, as his championship competitor, Aaron Morgan. He's going to be motivated to get to the front quickly, and I think that he knows that this is his last real opportunity before the finale to get one over on Morgan and Rasmus. So look for him to go to the front, and I'm predicting he's going to come out on top here.
And you make a good point, because the last time we went road racing was back in wine country. It was when Mike Rasmus, Matt Taylor had a very interesting scrap for the race win, but it was Rasmus that came out on top. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and we are ready. 25 Lotus 79s to scrap it out for race victory here in the Wolverine State. Pace car is down. Alex Guyon's teammate David Sirra in control as we say, let's get the Karnox Michigan 200 presented by Espo's Design underway. Already almost 4 wide. Chris Fowler has been swarmed on the race start, already down outside of the top 10 at this point in time. But here comes the run from Danny Roberts, +5 on the start already. And around the outside, Roberts to second.
Yeah, Chris Fowler just had a terrible restart there. He's dropping like a fly, but Danny Roberts, the exact opposite. He at draft and has gotten himself already all the way up into P3 as we end the first lap of this race.
I'm pretty sure they were 5 wide for a moment. That scared me, but they managed to get things safely through, hoping that we don't have a repeat of Motegi, where about half the cars were in the garage by lap number 10. Fowler's poor run continues. He's going to be passed by DeGroot as we take a look at this aerial angle brought to us by ATVO graphics partners at racespottv. 2 wide, almost 4 rows deep. Aaron Morgan leads that train 6th on back. Trevor Malone will slide down the inside. Sirwa still in control. David Rodriguez not really choosing to attack him so far. How easy is it going to be for the leader to control this race, Andrew? As 3 wide, Roberts on the inside.
I think it's going to be pretty difficult, as you're seeing here, Arjuna. I think that if the leader can hold the bottom line, then they stand a chance. But I don't know that they really can hold that bottom throughout the entirety of this run and entirety of this race. I think that you're going to see a lot of people being able to get some pretty decent runs going here, and they're going to be able to really challenge that leader as we see Roberts going to the front now, taking that lead away from David Sirwa.
I might be wrong, but I think these are the first lead laps for the 43 car in the 2021 season. Roberts leads at the line. Look who's coming around the outside, though, a man who's led lots of laps here in the last couple of years. It's the Candyman, Dustin Wardlow, who powers around the outside. Wardlow to second. Our pole sitter now sits in third. Just behind them, three abreast. Just behind Trevor Malone, it's Aaron Morgan, Robert Mikes, and Mike Rasmus, who is making hay early, up to 8th position.
Mike Rasmus doing exactly what he needs to do. He's keeping his championship competitors behind him. And that is the only thing that Rasmus can do being in P3 right now. He knows that he has to finish in front of them. So if he keeps them behind him the whole race, then he's going to achieve just that. But we see that it is now 2 and 3 wide still in the back of the pack. So these guys are not settling down quite yet. It is fairly orderly, Arjuna, though, I will say. It does look like we're getting sort of 2 lines forming for the most part, and then a few people going 3 wide here. Not quite as busy as it could be, but I have a feeling that that might just be temporary.
2 cars that are sitting pretty in the points have dropped to the rear end. Chris Farrell minus 18 to 20th. Matt Taylor minus 14 to 23rd. That's what we saw at Motegi, was Taylor being very cautious. Did pay out for him as lap 6 in the books. Craig Forsyth now puts in the fastest lap of the race. Robert Mikes around the outside. I think got a little bit loose there. He's plus double digits so far. Inside of him will be Craig Forsyth is in the lead now. Dustin Wardlow. I'm just hoping that these guys remember it's a long race, and one thing we haven't necessarily talked about, Andrew, is the fuel window. Anywhere from 32 to 33 laps. So if you're out front as Roberts and the Candyman make contact, the big one, Roberts into the path of oncoming traffic. I think Aaron Morgan got mixed up in that one. Caution flies for the first time today, and it's a big, big incident.
Exactly what you don't want to see is the 2 leaders coming together, and we just see carnage happening in the pack here. I do believe that you were right, and Aaron Morgan was a part of that, so that is going to have huge championship implications as we just are coming to the very beginning of this race.
Well, and not what you want to see, but we'll try and take a look on board with a man who's had almost no luck this season. It's Paul Jenkins in the iracing racing machine. Just watch in front of him. Roberts down into the path of the traffic. Jenkins clips the rear end. I believe that was Chris Reagan. And yeah, there you can see the purple and silver machine. All sorts of damage. Danny Roberts has lost both the front and rear ends of his cars. Richie Hearn, Danny Roberts, Paul Jenkins are immediately down onto pit road. I think David Sirah, one of the other cars, getting mixed up in that one. He clips the grass. I think manages to get away with that. So very, very fortunate there. The 96 of Chris Staples is the one that got pitted by Aaron Morgan. There you see the look as Richie Hearn in the thick of the action as well. Chris Lanini, that car on the right-hand side of your screen for a few moments. Nick DeGroot in the factory-backed car also comes into the path of that incident, and he's the one that comes into the rear end of Chris Lanini. My, oh my. Well, half the cars straight down onto pit road then, Andrew.
Not the start that a lot of these drivers really wanted here. I'm just looking at Aaron Morgan in the pits right here, and it does look like he might have just gotten away with that. He definitely did make contact, but I don't see any damage on his rear wing, so that is going to be a relief for our championship contender there. But that was definitely... When something big like that happens at the front of the field, especially in a race like this, it's so difficult to check up and do it in an orderly fashion. And so while the initial incident wasn't as big as it could have been, it really collected a lot of cars in that carnage there as they tried to all check up.
I think the only way I can surmise that crash is race car go boom and more cars pile into the thick of the action. So Morgan, 30 seconds stationary in the pits. Matt Taylor, also 30 seconds stationary, while Mike Rasmus did come down. Sits as the first car that came down onto pit road. Not sure how much damage potentially then on the 8 of Matt Taylor. Let's take a look at...
Taylor does have some front wing damage, I believe.
So he might be down one more time to try and get that repaired, I'd then think, Andrew.
Could very well be, but as we know, Arjuna, this car, the front wing isn't necessarily fully repairable. So if that's the case, the strategy of dropping to the rear sort of backfired on Taylor. He was probably looking to try and stay out of issues like this, but when you have an issue that's that big, you simply can't avoid it when you're in the back of the field, and I think that's what we're seeing here with Taylor. Is he just has just a little bit of damage. We'll have to see how he's able to keep up in the draft and potentially rest of this race if he's able to keep up and stay on the lead lap.
I tell you what, let's try and pick up what happened to the race leaders one more time and just grab a look of their actual incident. Danny Roberts holding a line. Don't exactly... Hard to see from that vantage point, but kind of seems like they're just squeezing each other. Roberts not all the way down to the white line. 2 goes into 1. Not what you want to see. Sirwa takes to the grass, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little bit more of the blame to Dustin Wardlow there. He was pinching Danny Roberts awfully hard for this early in the race. I don't think that Danny really had anywhere else to go there. I don't think that he was expecting to be pinched that hard this early. And I just think it's a little bit too early to be racing like that. I'm going to be honest here, Arjuna. Dustin's a good guy. I know he didn't do that on purpose. I think that he probably, as the car on the outside had a better handling car, allowed him to pinch down, but I think he just needed a little bit more awareness there of where Danny Roberts was going to be.
Well, this changes what I was saying just before the caution came out, in that it might have been a fuel save race. This caution would have changed the game. No fuel saving needed. David Rodriguez out front as we get the Karnox Michigan 200 back underway. Only 9 cars didn't roll themselves down onto pit road, and like we were saying earlier, this is the most separated out the cars will be. As the speeds build up, the draft intensifies, and we'll see pack racing once more. Isaac Snyder, Craig Forsyth, they're battling then for 4th position. Mike Razmas already around the outside of Ariel Alanis. Some separation building up, but it's not going to last for too long. And out of our 25 starters, 4 already parked in the garage. Chris Reagan, Richie Hearn, Danny Roberts, Paul Jenkins, the 4 retirees.
Yeah, I think that what you're going to see here, Arjuna, is there are a few cars that, even though they didn't come down pit road, they did have a little bit of front wing damage from that incident. That's going to separate these guys out even further. So you look at the gap between David Sirwad and Craig Forsyth, we have a 3-car breakaway up at the front of this field right now. It is the Candyman, David Rodriguez, and David Sirwat, and it'll be interesting to see whether those cars behind him have enough car to actually pull back up, because that gap is over a second right now.
Might start coming down, though, because Forsyth in control of the group for now. So Ricky Harden side by side with Alanis, who is maybe one of those cars just nursing a bit of damage. It's 3 abreast into turn 1 as Robert Mikes takes the fastest lap of the race. On the outside, Alex Guyon, not much he can really do, I think, other than just wait and try and build his momentum up. Race control will already be taking a look at that incident that we saw, the first caution on the day. Maybe Dustin Wardlow will see some sort of penalty, but we will have to wait and see. At least for the time being, he got rather lucky with the way that unfolded. No damage to his car, still side by side for the race lead, and he'll lead across the line.
Yeah, I don't honestly think that Dustin did that on purpose, and I don't think there's probably enough for a penalty there. I think it's one of those racing deals. From my point of view, at least, it wasn't probably the smartest thing for him to do, but at the same time, it's one of those things that can happen. I am noticing, though, Arjuna, that one of the cars that does have some significant damage and is dropping towards the back of the field is Isaac Snyder. He started up in, I believe it was P4 on the restart, and he is dropping very quickly towards the back of the field right now.
Can't really see it from this camera, but you can from there. Some nose damage to the front of the pink and blue. Now going to get passed by Michael O'Brien. Already about half a second behind the car we're riding on board with, Chris Fowler. As out front, still battling for the race lead. It's Rodriguez back to the point, but here comes the train. David Sirwa, Alex Guyon, teammates side by side. Lavoie Motorsports 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if these two can team up just a little bit, maybe gang up on the two in front of Rodriguez and the Candyman of Dustin Wardlow. Wardlow does seem to want to lead this race, and he's running sort of a middle line here, trying to keep both the high side and the low side at bay, but I don't know that it'll be able to survive for very much longer as they go 3 wide into turn 1.
And David Sirwa, I think, just riding around right now, might be feeling rather fortunate that his excursion through the grass, some rallycross action for him, hasn't done too much damage. Chris Staples, I thought I saw the 96 car getting mixed up. He did come down onto pit road, but fortunately for him, not major damage. Now up to 4th and looking for a way past. Guyon being hung out to dry right now. Not much momentum building up on his side. And kind of a preview of what we might see at the end of this race if it's a run to the line, a sprint to the checkered flag. All of these drivers downloading data, just practicing the different lines, seeing what they can do. Last couple of times around, it's been Dustin Wardlow that's led at the line. The top, 17 cars separated by about just under 3 seconds. Matt Taylor in 17th position. And like Andrew mentioned, Isaac Snyder does have damage. He's now 2 seconds adrift from the tail end of the field. Nick DeGroot, Chris Lanini, DJ Clark still out there and rolling, but I think DJ Clark is pulling it down onto pit road. Might be day done for him. 2 wide for the lead, 3 wide just behind them. Guyon hanging on up there. Ricky Harding following in his tire tracks.
These guys are flirting with disaster again. I hope that Dustin Wardlow has learned his lesson and he's not going to pinch again. Who is that car? Chris Staples is really coming on strong here, and he's been looking very, very racy. And he, as we go 3 wide, almost 4 wide into turn 3 already on lap 17.
And Staples has boxed out Guyon. He gets loose. Oh, manages to hold on to that car. But like you say, flirting with disaster. And some of these drivers, I think, have to remember, we've already seen 1 early caution that's taken out. Almost half the field. Has this happened once more? 2 cars into the catch fencing. It's Dustin Wardlow. It's, I believe, I'm not sure who the other car was. Was it Robert Mikes? But my, oh my, second caution comes out. And, well, playing with disaster, Michigan strikes once more.
Yeah, and it was Chris Staples and Dustin Wardlow there who just came together coming into turn 1. I'm not sure. There might have been a little bit of the cursed net code there, but there was an awful lot of weaving and lane changes, and this was the same sort of thing that got us in trouble in the first incident here. You can see just the car on the outside, Chris Staples there, he's pinching down on Dustin just too hard there. Looks like Ricky Hardin is involved as well, and I think you're right, that was Bobby Mikas as well. Yeah, it's again, I just don't understand Staples was playing at there. He's on the outside. He needs to give more space, and there needs to be just that little bit more respect with the drivers to make sure that we don't have more incidents like this.
Uncontrolled chaos, to say the very least, from Robert Mikes' perspective. Let's try and jump on board then with the 96 car. Not going to see too much from this one, so we'll spool it back just slightly further and watch here. Not really going to get the best angle, but I'm not sure if Staples is necessarily squeezing too hard. And once more, I think one of the cars that instigates the contact, rather fortunate to have gotten away with that. We'll take one more look, go high on up. Aerial coverage brought to us by ATVO. Go super slow-mo and take a look at this, Andrew.
Yeah, the problem is, as I saw from the onboard, Chris Staples doesn't really know where Dustin Wardlow is. He just knows that he's below him. But if I'm Chris Staples, I need to be up, see where that Lavoie Motorsports car behind them is. That's where Chris Staples needs to be, and that's where Dustin Wardlow's expecting him to be. And so much of this racing, especially at 200 miles an hour, being where the cars around you expect you to be. So in this case, I just don't think that Staples was where Dustin Wardlow expected him to be. And they just came together because they were going for that same portion of the track there. So if I'm Chris Staples here, I need to be aiming to be above this seam rather than racing on it and racing below it. And it's one of those things where you just need to be aware of how early it is in the race and how much space you need to leave for your competitors around you.
We took a look at the onboard there with Alex Guyon. Definite change of pants required, that's for sure. But as you see, a number of cars have worked their way onto pit road. David Rodriguez, George Anzaldo. 2 cars trying something different. Anzaldo did come onto pit road the last time around. Rodriguez electing to stay out there. And one thing that I was kind of curious about, and we were talking about just before we went live, Andrew, was before the update that we got to these Lotus 79s a couple of weeks ago, old tires were faster than new tires. And not just from a, car gets lighter over the course of a run. It was well and truly that you would never change your tires here in the Lionheart Retro Series. Bias ply tires, which is of course what these Lotus 79s would run, are designed to last the distance of a race, but that characteristic is carried over across this tire update, and so just like we saw over the rest of 2021, the first 13 races of the season, we're not going to be seeing too many tire changes once more to complete this season out.
Not too many tire changes, but there is a lot of fuel strategy going on here. And that's going to be the fascinating part for me, Arjun, is how some of these play out here. Because there is a substantial difference as the fuel levels go down and the fuel burns off. Tires tend to come in and the lap times get faster. So some of these drivers here that you're seeing are going to be a little bit slower initially, and it's going to be harder for them to keep up with the leaders. But at the same time, if they can stay in the draft and use that draft to their advantage, it's going to put them in a very, very good position later on in the race, because they're going to be able to use that tire advantage later on in the run when everyone else has to come down a bit earlier than them. Then that's where it comes into play, because then they'll be running probably in clean air and probably much faster than some of the other drivers here.
And so we're seeing what the tire update has done on ovals. Have you had the chance as the setup man for the Lionheart series to take this car out on the road courses just yet?
I have not had the chance to go on the road courses quite yet. Been busy with some of the other series as well that Lionheart runs, but it shouldn't be too big of a change. But at the same time, similar to what we have here, it's going to make the racing just a little bit better. The tire will be a little bit more realistic and a little bit more catchable, I think. So it should be a very good update.
And of course, it's a busy week coming up for Lionheart competition. Charlotte Motor Speedway next Monday for the Speedway Series. Wednesday, the Indy cars head to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Across the line, David Rodriguez back to the green flag. He'll be due down onto pit road in maybe only about 15 laps or so. So we'll have to wait and see how this one plays out. But of course, he'll be in danger potentially of going one lap down if he does have to make a green flag pit stop. So George Anzaldo did come down onto pit road. I think was trying to get that bonus point for leading a lap. As the word from race control, Chris Staples will be given a penalty for an avoidable contact, and Andrew, should be a drive-through penalty for the 96 car.
Yeah, and I see where they're coming from. Like I said, that was a case where you just didn't need to put your car in that type of jeopardy that early in the race. And it's a borderline call for me, but I do believe it's the right one. It's the type of message that you do need to send in this type of race where you start to see it maybe getting a little bit out of control. These drivers will now know that you can't keep pinching like that. And so that's an important thing to consider here, is that there is a little bit of a message being sent to these drivers that, hey, you need to calm down, you need to use your head a little bit more than this, really need to give some respect. So I do like that call ultimately at the end of the day.
Still 19 cars out there encircling. The Candyman has been on pit road for 6.5 minutes and counting. After getting up into the catch fencing like that, don't necessarily think you'll be out there back on track, but we'll have to wait and see. Robert Mike's added to the list of casualties here in the Michigan International Speedway, as around the outside, Alex Guyon looking for the race lead. He's plus 12 on the day so far, flirted with disaster on that last caution. David Rodriguez hanging tough with Craig Forsyth in his tire tracks. Across the line, it will be Rodriguez to lead.
Yeah, but it was very close. I believe it was under 0.02 of a second gap on that last time by there. 1,000th of a second gap as the timing updated there. Very, very close stuff, and I think that's going to be emblematic of how we're going to finish this race with another close finish. But one thing I am remarking, Arjuna, just how spread out this field is right now. There is a little gaggle of people at the front of the field with P1 through 5, another group forming up here, sort of P6 through about 12th, and Matt Taylor is a part of that group along with Mike Rasmussen and Aaron Morgan. So all three of our championship contenders are here in this second group.
You can see Morgan down on the bottom in the white and yellow. Just behind him is Rasmus, so second and third in the championship line astern for now. Taylor is behind George Anzaldo, who is just worked his way into shot. About 2/10 between Anzaldo and Taylor. These cars, 2.5 seconds and climbing the gap to the cars in front. Would question how much damage there is on Ron Hacker's machine, because lap time comparison between him and your race leaders is about 0.3 of a second last time around. And as
I don't think that's damage, Arjuna. I think that might be the fuel difference here, because Ron Hacker is one of those drivers who pitted more recently, whereas David Rodriguez, who is sort of towing that front pack around, he's out there on a 27-lap stint. So his tires and his pace is going to be a significant amount faster, and I think we're seeing that 2 to 3/10 right there is that pace advantage. Although, said this last lap for Ron Hacker was much slower, and we're even further back now.
Still about 3:10, so it's holding about the same, but you can see he's defending both the inside and the outside, so he's costing these guys time. Morgan trying to slip down the inside of independent driver Ariel Alanis. Razmas right behind him, almost giving a bump draft if he could. We'll jump on board with the championship leader. You can see here his strategy of keeping it calm at the start may not have worked out necessarily in his favor, but as we take a look at the live point standings, of course you can't get the full picture of the championship from this because they don't include the drop week. So an 18 race season, not all of those results get counted to your points total. So this will just add on to the current championship standings that we're looking at, but the gap is coming down very slightly. And it's always updating as Morgan getting shuffled around in that battle. O'Brien has worked his way down the inside and now challenges Hacker. That might work out nicely if he can build up his momentum, but still the top three separated by just over 60 points.
Yeah, Matt Taylor is doing everything he needs to do. He has that little bit of damage. Not sure if he can see that from his car, but he'll know that he's just sort of cruising here, and he knows that as long as he can keep that Aaron Morgan and Mike Rasmus in that group in front of him, he knows that he's in good shape right now. So he's not panicking. He just knows that he needs to let this race sort of its course for a little while now. What happens? And it seems like both the leading group and the second group here have really sort of settled down and are sort of very content to just let this race play out for a little while here. We saw some very aggressive driving very early on, but these drivers here now are much more settled down, much more respectful, and I think that we're going to see a much longer green flag run as a result here.
We've only got about 12 cars, I think, really now. There you can see in the shot coming out of turn 2, in position to battle for the race. Chris Lanini in 13th, not far off the pace by any stretch of imagination, but as you'll be able to follow along on racespot.tv/Indy, only 12 cars really have the speed at this point. 5 seconds separates those top 12 cars to put themselves in a chance of getting to the checkered flag out front. You can also see, we were talking about the battle between the top three, David Sirois has jumped his way up into 4th provisionally. Chris Reagan, who will retire from this race with that significant damage in that first caution of the night, will drop to 7th. Fowler down 1, O'Brien +1. Championship situation looking very, very interesting as we head into the final 4 races of 2021. Michael O'Brien out front, 0.02 of a second faster last time around, and we'll wait for the lap time this time for the number 45 machine as Alanis will pop himself out of the draft and pull to the outside. 200 slower, so I mean, not really pulling, but at least now they've managed to find a little bit more pace. They found those 0.3 of a second they were losing early on.
Yeah, the interesting thing right now will be whether those front two, O'Brien and Alanis, will start cooperating maybe a little bit more, maybe doing some swap drafting, or whether they start to hold each other up a little bit here as they start to fight a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see what route that this second pack takes to try and bridge that gap that's happened here. I will note, Arjuna, that Chris Staples did serve his penalty, and he is still on the lead lap. So if a caution comes out, necessarily positioned in the worst possible position, but he is basically on his own right now. He got by Nick DeGroot and Ricky Harden, both of whom are damaged, and he's down in 16th position, 25 seconds back of our leaders.
And he was the fastest car on the track last time around, but in danger of getting into the pack here that we're watching right now, where new race leader Craig Forsyth will lead across the line, waiting for David Rodriguez to come down onto pit road. He's 35 laps and counting into his run. And so if we take a look at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the track maps and the separation that we've got across the, 18 cars still out there and running. For Rodriguez, who's working his way through turns 3 and 4. Up the track he goes very slightly. He'll feed in right behind the 89 car. That'll be Nick DeGroot. But of course, like Andrew had mentioned, DeGroot with some significant damage. Not going to be a drafting partner for too long. So let's turn our attention back to that group, because these guys are still fighting tooth and nail. George Anzaldo down the inside of Ron Hacker. So it's O'Brien from Alanis from Anzaldo. First 3 cars in this group. Gap 3.3 seconds. They're trying to close. It's going to take some effort, but with green flag pit stops, especially at a place like this where it can be very bumpy, getting yourself down onto pit road and slowing yourself down, Andrew, I have to wait and see who can execute best.
Yeah, execution here is the name of the game, Arjuna. It's very, as you mentioned, very bumpy and very difficult to slow these cars down. It's a fairly imbalanced car, the way that this car has to get set up in order to run around these oval tracks. Very high on the left front, and actually a very high car in general. As we actually get, I believe, was that David Rodriguez?
So is Rodriguez down onto pit road this time around. He's indicating low and slowing himself down. So yes, it will be the RSR Esport car onto pit lane. There you can see, he got a bit sideways, locked up the tires. I wonder if he sped. We'll have to wait and see once he slides into his box, but that looks close. Just illustrates the difficulty of pit lane here.
And crucially, no pit limiters on these cars. These cars are fully manual gearbox, and no electronic aids such as pit limiters. So it's very, very difficult to gauge that speed, especially coming off a corner where you're going 190 miles an hour plus through, and then you have to slow it all the way down to pit road speed and keep it there for the entire length of pit road. It takes a lot more skill than anyone wants to believe until the first time that they speed in one of these cars and realize just how much concentration it takes to actually pit them.
We've seen some pit calamities recently across Lionheart competition. The likes of Alexis Newsom, who really has not enjoyed those trips to pit road to visit her teammates in the garage area. But that one went pretty smoothly for Rodriguez. You saw 8.7 seconds stationary. No penalty for his RSR Esport car. So he's fed himself about 6 seconds behind Chris Staples. And now on a full tank of fuel will be a little bit slower than the rest of the cars. But he should be good to make it to the end with just one more pit stop from here, whereas the rest of the competitors, Andrew, if I'm doing my math right, they might need one additional stop. It will be short. It will be a fairly short stop, yes, but it will still be one additional time down onto pit lane, and you lose more time not from being stopped in your box, but slowing yourself down and rolling down pit road.
Yeah, so I think, but crucially, mention that everyone else will have to have 2 stops. That'll put them on the same strategy as Rodriguez eventually. Crucial part for Rodriguez is he's still on the lead lap here. So that means that you can pit, if you're in the lead group at least, you can pit and get back out in front of the leaders again and still stay on your lap. So that puts everyone else here in the danger zone, and it allows, if the caution does come out, hopefully it doesn't, but if it does come out, it allows Rodriguez to cycle all the way back up to the front, because surely all of these drivers will come down on a pit lane and top up on fuel.
Hopefully no more cautions as Anzaldo pops himself out to the inside of the 21 car. He'll look, slides it through the corner. Should have that position secured heading out of turn 4 and across the start-finish line. Out front, they've organized themselves. Craig Forsyth, Alex Guyon, David Sirah, and Trevor Malone, the front 3 cars. with 3.5 seconds back to Michael O'Brien in the Avatar Auto Racing number 45 machine. Craig Forsyth joined the series back in Phoenix, so a rookie when it comes to the Lotus 79. 11 races so far, 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, leading laps for not the first time in his career. 2 laps led, but he is adding to that count right now. Alex Guyon has ripped the lead away. Lavoie Motorsports 1 and 3.
Yeah, Lavoie Motorsports is doing a really good job here at the front. They've been at the front for most of this race, and they've really seemed like the 2 drivers of Guyon and Sirwa have really been on the pace here. Sirwa's doing a great job, obviously qualified on the pole, and he's known as more of a road guy than an oval guy, but I think you said this earlier, Arjuna, he's really starting to take to this oval driving, and he's driving a very smart race. Also, I want to bring your attention, Trevor Malone in 4th place. He's been really quiet in that teal car, which isn't necessarily the case all the time with him, but he's another one who's driven a really, really smart race here, and I think that could pay off dividends for him in the long run.
Trevor Malone, a driver who was there for the very first Lionheart Retro Series race, has not always been a full-time driver, making his 30th Retro Series start. And I mentioned Paul Jenkins, a driver that's had basically no luck in 2021. Trevor Malone, that's the story of his season, not just here in Retro competition, but across of all the Lionheart events. So great to see that 34 car running up at the front and in good position. On board with that, clipping that Apex onboard look. Rearwards from Guyon. Great look at the helmet of Craig Forsyth. iRacing doesn't just let you customize your cars to your heart's delight, but your suits, your helmets, and even now your driver itself with some additional character customization that's gone into the service. An ever-evolving platform, and one which sees World Championship competition this week in all 4 of the disciplines. So great to have that top level of iRacing action. As look at Forsyth aggressively to the inside of Guyon. And in this position, Andrew, you might not need to save fuel to make it to the end, but saving fuel is not the worst case, because like I was saying, splash and dash at the end just makes your pit stop that much shorter, gets you back onto track that little bit quicker.
It does, Arjuna, and all these little things, all these little calculations really do make a difference in the long run. The pit time here, it's not insignificant, but at the same time, saving even a second, it might be just enough to break you away from that gap. So as you mentioned, some of these drivers who are sort of stretching it out here, maybe like a Trevor Malone, who has been sitting in the back of this pack and just saving fuel behind all these cars, they might be able to go just a couple of extra laps as the race wears on, and it'll allow them to just gain that little bit of advantage that you need to gain the track position that'll win you this race.
And we are coming up towards those green flag pit stops, because these cars, about 27 laps and counting. Mike Rasmas has made his way forward in this pack of cars, now sits in 6th position, being challenged by George Anzaldo around the outside. His championship rivals Morgan and Taylor have dropped to the tail end of the group, just behind the red and blue car. A very patient race from Matt Taylor, who's not always been the strongest driver in the first half of the race, but as the track rubbers in, as Taylor feels more confident, feels more willing to go for those brave moves, expresses himself on the race just that little bit more. Taylor in not just 1 championship fight, but 2 up there in the Speedway rankings as well. When you're coming down in a group, it's not as big a group, Andrew, as we might have thought at the start of this race, but how do you get yourself onto pit road in an orderly fashion? Because we've seen on occasion in Lionheart competition, I was thinking back to IndyCar racing last time out when they went short track racing. If you get stuck behind someone on pit road, it costs you time, can also crash you into the tire walls. Jason Brophy found that out. Rather unfortunate for the private label Team Hype driver.
Yeah, it is. It can be a difficult proposition to get down on a pit road sometimes, especially with the speed difference that you need, because you actually do need to slow down on the track. At the same time, you can see that the line, especially for the leaders of this pack, is really along that bottom lane. So communication is going to be really key for these drivers. One advantage that we do have in sim racing over real world racing is that you can communicate with all the other drivers. You can have either text alerts, or you can key up your microphone so that everyone can hear what your intentions are. And so it'll be very important for these drivers to make their intentions known and give everyone a lot of opportunity to get into the line that they need to avoid them as they come down on a pit road, because it is one of the most treacherous points of the race is as you come down on a pit road. Not just from your own car control, but making sure that everyone around you knows what you're doing and you're clear in your intentions and they're clear in their intentions.
Halfway through the race. 50 laps in the books, 50 still to go. Craig Forsyth, Alex Guyon, David Sirott, and Trevor Malone have broken away, but the pack has closed. From 3.6 seconds down to 2.3. George Anzaldo now leads that group of cars that's chasing. Squabble for fifth continues. Isaac Snyder came down onto pit road last time around. Pit stop window just about to open. And like we're saying, don't look away, don't blink. Things might change in that blink of an eye. They work themselves then. Couple of tenths faster last time around for Michael O'Brien. Executing on pit road, might be able to pull them into the draft of the cars in front. What's the draft window like in these Lotus 79s?
It's normally about 0.8 to 1 second there, Arjuna. You have to get yourself pretty close to the back of the car in front of you to really feel the effects of the draft. You do get a little bit of a tail effect a little bit farther back, but it's not really noticeable enough to really start seeing the cars pull up. You really need to be, again, 0.8, 1 second behind to really feel that car. But I've been very impressed with Michael O'Brien here. He's been dragging this pack up, this second pack, almost single-handedly. There have been a few drivers coming up beside him, but he's been sticking right to that bottom of the racetrack using that very tight line, and he is dragging that pack back with him towards that front leading four.
There's some lap traffic, and the first pit call has been made. It will be Ariel Alanis in that second group, following in Ron Hacker. So two cars blinking. The rest thunder around the Michigan International Speedway. The gap between fourth and fifth now under 2 full seconds. If the trend continues like this, as it's now 1.7 seconds, O'Brien and Anzaldo egging each other on. I'll be in drafting range very, very shortly. Guyon indicating this time around, so your leaders might be coming in. One Lavoie Motorsports car going low. Looks like the other's going to stay out there. Forsyth in as well. Trevor Malone, the third car in that leading group to come down. David Sirott will retake the race lead as Aaron Morgan is followed in by Michael O'Brien, side by side on pit entry.
Yeah, not the best pit entry for Michael O'Brien. Aaron Morgan was a few cars behind him and actually got all the way beside him on pit entry, so there was a little bit of a mistake from Michael O'Brien there. And I was just about to mention how key that pit in is going to be for that second pack. This is going to be where everything gets a little bit mixed up for all these drivers, is on these pit ins and pit outs. There's a lot of time to be made up and a lot of time to be lost as well.
Into pit road this time around, George Anzaldo, Matt Taylor leaves Mike Rasmas, the only car to still be out there and circulating. So there's the fuel saving, but now no draft assistance. How is that going to play out for him? Sirrah Taylor, not too much separating them either. 2 seconds between David Rodriguez and Craig, 1 second I should say between Rodriguez and Forsyth. My timing updated there. Guyon didn't have the best time on pit road, while the times on the lane basically identical between Forsyth and Guyon. The gap between those two cars is 2 full seconds. There's David Sirrah rolling himself off the lane. So Forsyth had a blinder down on the lane. Very quick time on pit road. He's the only car in the draft of David Rodriguez.
Excellent pit stop from Craig Forsyth, and you're right, though the two Lavoie Motorsports cars and Trevor Malone did not have the best pit stop, and we're seeing that actually Matt Taylor and Aaron Morgan both also had very good pit stops. They're now up, those two Lavoie Motorsports cars, in that draft, and they're very quickly going to be joining the cars in front of them and potentially making the battle for P3 here, more than just a four-car battle that we've seen so far. But David Rodriguez, I gotta say, has been really, really impressive. He was on his own for a very long period of time, but he was able to turn in the laps that he needed to in order to drag out that gap just a little bit, and only Craig Forsyth was able to stay with him through that cycle of pit stops.
So Avatar Auto Racing run 7th, 8th, and 9th. Their impressive run in that team's championship will continue if they can accumulate the points like they have. But Mike Rasmas, not Reich Matt. Wow, okay, that would have been an interesting name. But Mike Rasmas has cycled himself in front of Taylor, about 1 second between the two championship contenders. So still technically within drafting range. It's going to take some work for Taylor, for O'Brien, for Morgan to close on up. Alanis and Hacker have kind of lost out in the cycle by themselves. 2 seconds adrift from Enzaldo, who sits in 10th positions as teammates side by side. Guyon getting a bit spooked by Sirra coming up the track. Gap between Forsyth and Sirra, 2.9 seconds and counting. Now looking in a good position if we go green to the end for Rodriguez and Forsyth, I'd say right now, Andrew.
Definitely a good position right now. I think that the next round of pit stops will be really, really telling. Forsyth and Rodriguez definitely had good pit stops, but they need to be able to do it just one more time in this race. So we can see that there's plus or minus almost 2 seconds depending on whether you have a good pit stop or a bad pit stop. I also want to mention that it's at this point right here where Matt Taylor just had that sniff of the draft. This is really where that damage has sort of hampered Matt Taylor. He's able to draft fine and he's able to be the car that's following, but we just saw that he could not stay with Mike Rasmus when Mike Rasmus came in front of him, even though he probably, if he had had a fully healthy car, he probably could have stayed with him. So that damage probably cost Taylor, Zaldo, and O'Brien the draft, at least for now, of those cars in front of him.
If Enzaldo can get around, let's see if he can be the car to pull up these contenders. Now, O'Brien was very quick. Well, I'd cycle O'Brien to the front of this train and let him do the hard work, the heavy lifting. That gap now 1.5 seconds, so not ideal for Taylor, for Morgan in the championship hunt. Forsyth is closing on Rodriguez. Gap building between him and that train third on back. 3.6 seconds adrift is David Sirra. My, oh my, things are shaping up very, very interestingly right now. And despite the fact that we've got, what's it, 7 cars in pit road. DJ Clark, the most recent retiree, decided to park his car about 38 laps ago. Still a very interesting fight, and pit strategy always very fun. Let's see if Rodriguez can pull off another strategy miracle like he did in Iowa. These two cars still extending their legs. Last time around, the lap times are pretty close between Rodriguez and Sirra, but hundredths, thousandths of a second, it all matters when you go speedway racing, Andrew.
It absolutely matters, and I will actually say right here that I think that Craig Forsyth might just be in the catbird seat here. I'm doing the math right in my head. I think that he can probably get away with a stop that's maybe 2.5 seconds quicker than what Rodriguez will have to have. Rodriguez is going to have to come down in probably the next 8-10 laps, and he's going to have to take on basically a full load of fuel here, whereas Craig Forsyth will not have to come down that soon. Now, he may have underfilled slightly in order to stay with Rodriguez, and that might be why we're seeing him so much further up than, say, David Sirra or Alex Guyon. But at the same time, that this puts Craig Forsyth in the catbird seat, at least from a strategic point of view. If he can execute on pit road, he really has this race in control right now, I think.
And 3.9 seconds clear now of the cars behind, so Forsyth to the point. Let things play out as they will, and things are going to be interesting at the end. It might be the largest winning margin we've seen in Lionheart Retro Series action here at the Michigan International Speedway. It's round 14 of the 2021 Lionheart Retro Series. Don't go anywhere on racespottv. 35 laps still to go. Welcome back to racespottv and ESTV for coverage of the 2021 Lionheart Retro Series. We're in the Wolverine State for the Karnox Michigan 200 presented by Espo Design. My name is Arjuna Kankapati, joined in the racespottv commentary booth behind the Lionheart setup maker himself, Andrew Kinsella. You can follow along with live timing and scoring powered by our partners at ATVO by heading to racespot.tv/Indy to find your favorite team and drivers. Andrew, two early cautions have really shaken things up, but Craig Forsyth, David Rodriguez, they have pulled a 4.5-second advantage over the rest of the field. Heading into the final pit stop cycle, things are looking very, very interesting.
There's still a lot to play for here as we get into this final stage of the race. We just passed the point where you can pit from here and make it on fuel, so now the timing is open. We'll have to see who takes the early pit stop and who goes a little bit longer, and this should be for a very interesting strategy battle from here on out.
And so two questions I have for you, Andrew, is one, how does a caution affect things? But two, if you're Forsyth, when do you decide to come on down, and how do you cover off the threat of a potential caution?
So number one, I think that a caution would change things because it's going to allow that second group of cars right back into it, and it's going to shake everything up there and potentially allow a lot of people to back into play who maybe are a little bit out of it, as we actually see David Rodriguez is coming down this lap. So that's 31 laps to go, coming up to 30 laps to go for David Rodriguez. That's almost a full tank of fuel, so he's going to have to spend a little bit more time on pit road here, and he's going to have to hustle it. He's going to be in touch with Craig Forsyth once this pit cycle that's begun here shakes out in a few laps.
Into the box. Won't go up on the jacks. That's the story of the Lotus 79 and its bias ply tires. Rodriguez will be about 13th, maybe 15th out on track once he cycles himself out. Another long stop for him, 8.5 seconds. He was quick last time, building his pace out of pit road, but there comes Craig Forsyth around into turn number one. Here comes the rest of the chasing pack. George Anzaldo, David Sirra still side by side. 29 laps still to go. So David Rodriguez with that 8.5 second stop has to now make up about 2 seconds on the track. And we'll wait and see how the lap times will fare out between him and your new race leader. Let's talk then about your sim experience driver profile. It is Ricky Harden. He was hard into the wall, that's for sure. But with 29 starts, 12 top 10s, a solitary victory that came at this very track 12 months ago. He's shown a lot of perseverance in this very race because, Andrew, I mean, after the amount of damage he sustained, he's 2 seconds basically off the pace every single lap, but he's still out there and circulating, looking for whatever points he can get.
Absolutely, and in a race like this, you never want to give up. So if your car is still able to go in a straight line and is able to do decent lap times, he knows very well that there could be another incident in this race, and he stands to gain huge in the points if he does that. So I don't blame him for sticking it out. It's just really hard to do and hard to keep your concentration for that long when you know that you have no real chance at winning the race. But it's one of those things that over a long season, efforts like this don't go unnoticed, and you get reward at season's end with a better points finish because of it.
And misery loves company, I mean, that's for sure. Nick de Groot down onto pit road. There goes the company, so misery for Ricky Harden all by himself. So here we go. Back up front, David Sirra still in second. These guys might be in a position to try and leapfrog Rodriguez with their shorter stops respectively. Executing on pit road is going to be so vital with 26 laps still to go. Top 5, Forsyth, Sirra, Anzaldo, Guyon, and Malone. So Malone slipped back. He was in that first 4 cars that had broken away after that second caution on the day. Finds himself in the thick of the action. And in terms of championship contenders, they're all on your screen. Mike Razmas, the leading car in the top 3 in that championship fight, but he's in front of the championship leader Matt Taylor. Aaron Morgan behind his teammate Michael O'Brien. Top 9 separated by 5.6 seconds. And despite the fact that Forsyth now has no company, he's still managing to pull away. Last time around, it was about half a tenth of a second. Gap between him and these fighting, squabbling cars is 4.8 and counting. So you said Forsyth's in the Catberg seat. I'd say Forsyth's in the driver's seat.
Yeah, Forsyth has played this strategy game perfectly so far. He's used the faster car of David Rodriguez. When Rodriguez was on low fuel, they got a very nice gap, and he's now put himself on a nice sort of island out in front of this field. Whereas David Sirois, George Anzaldo, Alex Gouillon, they're still battling amongst themselves, so they're not really going as fast as they necessarily can go. And we saw that, for instance, Michael O'Brien, he was able to get that bottom hooked up. I don't know that David Sirois has really quite got the bottom figured out just as much as Michael O'Brien did. And we're seeing a lot more battling in this group here, and it's a lot more combative back here, and it's just allowing Forsyth to eke out maybe a half a tenth here, a half a tenth there every lap, and lap after lap, it's just allowing him to get further and further ahead of this group. So this group really is very quickly starting to battle more for second or third place than it is for the race win.
And guess what? Another half a tenth gone there. Malone, quickest car on the track. No, Razmas, the quickest car on the track last time around. Rodriguez, just for your consideration, 37.656. David Sirois, 6.64. Craig Forsyth, a 6.19. So all the cars, I mean, in that same bracket, tenth of a second bracket, but still not necessarily large margins separating these contenders. So about 10 laps away from that pit window opening. Forsyth will be down 1 lap later than the rest of these cars, that most of these cars I should say that we're seeing. Razmas will have the shortest of the stops.
That is if they go to the end of the pit lane or pit window, Arjuna. I don't know that all of these drivers will necessarily do that. I do think that as we come up to sort of 20 to go here, it's going to get a lot more tempting for some of these drivers to maybe do something just a little bit different and possibly try to leapfrog and use maybe some traffic, maybe some of the slower traffic as drafting fodder and potentially get a little bit of an advantage that way. So it'll be interesting to see whether they all go to the end of this pit window or not.
I know what you mean, but I can't shake the feeling that we might get a caution to spice things up. Just hope it doesn't take out more of our competitors. And just a reminder, 25 starters, 18 still out there and running. DJ Clark, Dustin Wardlow, Robert Mikes, Chris Reagan, Richie Hearn, Danny Robert, and Paul Jenkins, all in that graveyard of cars sitting in the garage. And we were mentioning that Matt Taylor is your leader in the oval point standings, but not at the front of the points on the road courses, and that's where we're heading next. It will be Silverstone, a race that's had its own dramatic races this year, not just in the real world, but in Lionheart competition as well. Thinking back to what we saw in the IndyCar race there, one of the best races we've seen until that very last corner, where things took a turn for the worse. Then to the streets of Long Beach, always an interesting one. Attrition going to be just as important there as it has been here today. Then Road America, the penultimate race of the campaign, leading into the double points finale, the final leg of the Triple Crown. It will be Fontana and the Auto Club Speedway. Andrew, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you had to add a road course into this Retro Series consideration, and I want to make it one that's not on the iRacing service, or one that's relatively new. So let's throw in the Hungaroring, let's throw the Red Bull Ring in there. We can even throw Hockenheim in there if you really want to, but this Lotus 79, definitely more accustomed to running on the road courses. Where would you like to see this car go and race around?
So we have to eliminate the Nürburgring because that's just the obvious.
That's the best track. Best track.
Yeah, it's too easy. It's too easy. That's a really good question, Arjuna. Now or any track whatsoever?
Let's. It's Fantasyland. Let's do any track whatsoever.
I would have loved to see the Lotus 79 go around Riverside.
You're going to have to educate me here a little bit, Andrew. I feel rather uneducated right now.
Riverside was a track that was in California and was the site of some very interesting NASCAR races over the years. It sort of reminds me to a certain extent of Motorsport, although it doesn't quite have as much elevation change as Motorsport does, but it does have a fair bit of it. And it's just those off-camber corners that it would be so much fun in this car, as the back end will be prone to stepping out, and it's just one of those tracks that's just this classic track from American history that unfortunately is no longer around. I would love to see that on this service and with this car running on it.
Interesting. I do like the wild cards that you've picked out there. I'm going to go for something that's maybe a bit boring for some, but I'd love to see Kailami, which is available on other simulators. You know, head to South Africa and what is a very fascinating track, very interesting flow as Ariel Alanis down onto pit road. So one car does come down early, thinking, I think, about a potential caution and cycling themselves to the front of the field. That's the great thing about iRacing. I mean, even though certain tracks have been at one point considered unattainable, I'm thinking of the ones that have been restored recently by the likes of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and then scanned and brought back to life here on the iRacing service. Can never say never to things. And
now, I do have a question, though, for you. With that question, which version of Kailami would you go to?
Ooh, I'd probably want the classic version. As Aaron Morgan down onto pit road this time around. So pit window well and truly open, and Morgan blinks. Only car in the group to come down this time around. More and more questions being asked here, and speaking of your question, I would like the classic version, the one that the Lotus 79 actually raced around, because the modern layout is fun, but there's something about the classic layouts, less forgiving, less room for error, and just more pressure on the drivers.
Yeah, the circuits were really raw and powerful back when this car was actually
sorry, Andrew.
in the real world.
I'm going to cut you off. Forsyth is down. Is he responding, or has he decided to come down with 14 to go? O'Brien will be in as well. This is crucial. Forsyth, let's watch the pit stop time. For Aaron Morgan, it was 5.9 seconds. The 53 car into the box. Fuel going in. It's 5 seconds. 6.7 seconds, so a bit longer than what we saw from Morgan. Michael O'Brien also with a 5.9 second stop. Where is David Rodriguez? That is the crucial question. Rodriguez is powering his way in through turn one. It's going to be close. Rodriguez is going to have the momentum. Forsyth will be in front for now and will still not be within drafting range. He's getting himself up to speed, but Forsyth 1 second clear.
That was 2 seconds faster than David Rodriguez's pit stop. I believe Rodriguez had about an 8.7, and Craig Forsyth was at a 6.7. It does look like, I do believe David Rodriguez does have a sniff of that draft. I think he got a little bit of help from Chris Staples and was able to draft around him. Staples had that penalty, but at the same time, he has a car that is basically intact and is just as fast. So he was able, I think Rodriguez was able to use Staples to draft around the track for a fair bit here. And as we see a little bit of a gaggle of cars coming out of pit road here as George Anzaldo merges back up into Michael O'Brien and Aaron Morgan.
So where's Taylor? Taylor is still out there. Guyon is coming this time around. So one Lavoie Motorsports car, that's David Sirra at the tail end of the train. His teammate down, and where will he cycle out? 5.4 seconds stationary this time around. And confirmation for David Rodriguez, it was 8.5 from our partners at ATVO. Taylor and Razmas in this time, and Taylor got around Razmas just coming into the pit entry. So this is crucial. Championship points on the line. The championship leader past Razmas. These cars not going to be contending for the race lead. Rodriguez 3/10 behind now in closing, so things are not done. 9 laps left to go, 18 miles here in the Michigan International Speedway. At one point, we did think might be looking at a new record for the largest margin of victory. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. In the battle for the title, Morgan behind Anzaldo. They're going to be just behind Taylor and Razmas. There's Taylor, there's Razmas, building the speed up. They should hold on coming into turn 3.
Yeah, great job from both Taylor and Razmas. I know that they tried to go...
For the lead,
we have a
side by
move for the
side.
lead.
Oh, this is crazy. And Chris Staples in the popcorn seat. Plenty of entertainment for him. Side by side, Rodriguez will use the outside line. I don't know which line I'd rather be on, but Rodriguez to the lead.
I think I want to be on the inside here, Arjuna. I think that you're going to see that Craig Forsyth try to force David Rodriguez the long way around. It'll be interesting to see, though. Chris Staples is being a little bit racy here. It'll be interesting to see whether he continues to race like this with these lead lap cars a little bit more respect and allows them to battle to the end here.
Oh, Chris, what are you doing? Oh, you're ruining this fight. Oh, it's entertaining, but we'd like to see it be a fair fight, a slug out between the top 2 cars, and Staples might even try and get his lap back from your race leader. Pops himself to the outside. Rodriguez. Oh, look at that speed. Look at how close he gets to the rear wing. So let him build up his momentum. And meanwhile, just behind, talk of championship implications here. First and third in the championship, side by side and 3 wide. Behind them, Alex Guyon. Incredible action all over the track. Michigan puts on a show, Andrew.
Michigan always puts on a show, Arjuna, and we're seeing it once again. You mentioned that we were looking at maybe a bigger gap, but David Rodriguez drove an absolutely fabulous race here. He did exactly what he needed to do on that alternate strategy. He used the traffic to draft up, and he is fighting for the lead of this race. And meanwhile, back, we are 3 wide, 2 deep here, or 3rd through 8th. And this is going to be fascinating to watch both of these battles as the race winds down here.
I don't even know where I want to look right now, because I said we might get a caution. If it's going to come from anywhere, it's definitely in this pack, as Razmas in front now by the slimmest of margins. Taylor is being pinched to the inside. Has his nose in front, almost contact between Razmas and Anzaldo. Lavoie Motorsports cars are formed up on the inside. Aaron Morgan looks to the outside line. All sorts of things going on here. 6 laps still left to go. Taylor, Razmas, and Zaldo still 3 abreast. Momentum builds up on the outside line, and Zaldo tries to get a hint of the draft as well. Out front, single file for the time being. This is where, if you're Rodriguez, you have to be patient. You have to plot your path. That's what I was saying earlier on in the race, Andrew, where it's building that data bank, right? Downloading the data, building the experience, and planning out for that final 2-mile sprint.
Absolutely. David Rodriguez spent some time in the lead, but he has also spent some time right behind Craig Forsyth, seeing where Craig Forsyth is good, seeing where he's able to draft up and potentially steal this win. Down to the last lap, the last corner, and he's got to position himself just right in order to get Craig Forsyth, because Craig Forsyth is not going to let him have that inside line. He's going to make Rodriguez go around the outside. It's going to be a very close race to the end, as we see these drivers are still 3 wide, and Aaron Morgan is looking to potentially go 3 wide with the other 2 championship contenders here. We might have 3 wide with all 3 championship contenders if we're not careful here, Arjuna.
Oh, I've got a Christian Horner foot tap going on right now. I am just super, super nervous. I can't even imagine what the heart rate must be like for some of these drivers. Some people think that sim racing isn't intense. Well, the cars aren't real, the racing is real, and I tell you what, the nerves that you get sometimes just build up. Razmas in front, though. Does he go low? Does he cut off the championship leader? He'll maintain his line. Interesting there. It will give Taylor an opportunity to come back down. This is the fight for the podium, of course. Out front, Rodriguez still 1/10 behind, snaking back and forth, and Zaldo almost into the right rear of Aaron Morgan. He has to tuck into line, and the top 3 in the championship, 3 abreast, 6 miles to go.
Oh, that was so close from George Anzaldo and Aaron Morgan, but they made it work, and we are looking at a great race here between their top 3 in the championship. They're giving each other just enough space, not too much space, though, as both Mike Rasmus and Aaron Morgan look to steal a few points here off of Matt Taylor and narrow up that margin just a little bit as they almost get close again. Aaron Morgan really, really close there.
And look out front. Lap traffic is a factor. Isaac Snyder giving some draft assistance to Craig Forsyth. This is going to be interesting because Snyder is off the pace, pulls to the high line. So does Ricky Harding. And so does Nick DeGroot. So it's going to be an all-out slugfest now between these two competitors. Behind them, almost 4 wide. But this time around, white flag in the air. For Craig Forsyth, his 12th Retro Series start, searching for his first Retro Series win. For David Rodriguez, his 4th start of the campaign, 4th start of his career, looking to build off an impressive win at the Iowa Speedway. Here we go, 2 miles left to go in the Karnox Michigan 200 presented by Espo Design. Still battling for 3rd. You can see the timing towers going insane. And Zaldo down to
no, Aaron Morgan!
Oh no, so the battle for 3rd has ended in tears. We'll take a look at the replay coming to the checkered flag though. Out front, Forsyth, Rodriguez. It's going to be close. Is it close enough? The RSR Esport machine looking for whatever he can do in the draft to the outside. It will be side by side at the line. Photo finish. Who's it gonna be? It is David Rodriguez, 2nd career Retro Series win for him. For Craig Forsyth, heartbreak at the line. My oh my, margin of victory, 1.5 hundredths of a second. Incredible. And for David Rodriguez, heartbreak. For Craig Forsyth, the agony of defeat. Michigan put on a show. Yes, we lost about 7 cars early on, but the rest of the competitors kept it clean, kept it going to the checkered flag, and Rodriguez, no magic fuel tank this time around, just the perfect move across the line.
Oh my goodness, Arjuna. What a move that we just saw from David Rodriguez. He timed that perfectly, and he did exactly what he needed to do there. I think that the racespottv replay machine is going to be busy in the next little bit here, because not only did we have Mike Rasmussen and Aaron Morgan getting together on the last lap through turns 1 and 2, but we also had a 4-wide finish for 3rd place that we need to take a look at as well. So I think that we should probably spool up some of these replays here if we can.
We'll watch Rodriguez burn the house down first. Well-deserved donuts. And I tell you what, let's go take a look at that entire final lap of the race, because I think you're right, the replay machine has caught it all. And we'll see if we can take a look at what happened. Replay machine being a bit slow right now. There we go, replay machine has worked itself out. So here we go, across the line. Morgan on the outside. The 3 championship leaders at the front of the train. O'Brien takes it 4 abreast. So it's going to be in the middle. O'Brien and Rasmus. Oh! Morgan, O'Brien, and Rasmus come to blows. Big incident there, all into the catch fencing. It leaves a 2 Lavoie Motorsports car to run themselves into turn 3. And Zaldo has a great view of the action. In the middle, it's Guyon. On the outside, it will be Sirois. Margins between these cars so incredibly close. But it's Alex Guyon in the middle that takes the final step on the podium. And Zaldo steals a position from Matt Taylor at the line. Sirois 200ths behind his teammate, and Zaldo 4,000ths behind Sirois. Matt Taylor 3.5 hundredths behind, and Zaldo for 5th position. One more look at what happened to Aaron Morgan, and talk us through this one, Andrew.
Yeah, so it's the last lap of the race, and the gloves are off. We just have 4 wide going through here, and Aaron Morgan comes down just a little bit as Mike Rasmus goes up. It's just one of those things where on the last lap of the race, you can't fault anyone really. They're all going for that same bit of real estate, and it's just one of those things that happens when you get 4 wide here. But it's the last lap of the race, and you have to be trying to get anything you can. There is probably a little bit of net code, the dreaded net code there as well, and it's just up into the catch fencing, a violent impact for both Rasmus and Morgan, and that is not what either of them wanted for their championship hopes, as they will finish, I believe, 11th and 12th, while Matt Taylor finishes in 6th place and takes that gap over the 2 of them out just that little bit more heading into this stretch of 3 road courses.
And incredibly, despite the margin of victory, it is only the 3rd closest finish in Retro Series history here at the Michigan International Speedway. It was 1.5 hundredths of a second. But in his 12th career start, Craig Forsyth just misses out. David Rodriguez powers around the outside to take the win. His 2nd this year, his 2nd in Retro Series competition. Alex Guyon completes the podium. Look at those margins from 3rd on through 6th. Under 1/10 of a second separates those cars. Guyon across the line to take that podium. Sirra in 4th from pole, and Zaldo Taylor to round out the top 6. Taylor might be disappointed, but when he saw what happened with Rasmus and Morgan, his 2 championship rivals, don't think his disappointment is going to last for long because he'll extend his championship advantage. Trevor Malone in the TL34 car ran up there in the top 5 early in the race. Across the line in 7th. Chris Fowler 8th. Ron Hacker 9th. Mike Rasmus in that incident completes the top 10. Aaron Morgan, Michael O'Brien not scored on the lead lap after going up into the catch fencing, along with Chris Staples, Chris Lanini 1 lap down. Isaac Snyder 2 laps down in the pink and blue. We saw him being very courteous to your race leader early in that final lap of the race. Nick DeGroot, Ricky Harding ran with each other. Misery loves company, but after early damage for the both of them, 16th and 17th, at least decent points for the both. Ariel Alanis with technical issues retires with 9 laps to go, while DJ Clark nursed some damage for a couple of laps before deciding to park his Aero X Racing number 4. Dustin Wardlow, involved in our second caution of the day and the first caution of the day, retires 82 laps down from your leader. Robert Mikes, Chris Reagan, Richie Hearn, Paul Jenkins, Danny Roberts, and Tyler Graff complete our Karnox race results. A graveyard of cars, very, very big here in the Michigan International Speedway, but remarkably, just 2 cautions on the day, second best in series history. And so with that, it is time to make our way into the HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. And so waiting for us in HyperX victory lane for the second time this season, it's David Rodriguez. No magic fuel tank this time around, David, but congratulations. What a close race that was.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I really wanted to qualify up front, which I did, thankfully, and I thought that was my strategy, to stay up front. And I mean, I thought all the wrecks would happen behind me, but they actually happened next to me, and I was so lucky to avoid it. And then from there on, I made the call to stay out and make it a 2-stop race, which, really helped me out. And I think that, just getting in clean air and running like fast laps in front of everyone, staying on the lead lap really helped me in my strategy.
And so once you got in that position to, you and Craig, it was a two-horse fight, let's be honest there. What was the strategy? Wait till the final lap, because there was some lap traffic that made things difficult for you guys as well. But, we always knew that if it was going to be a sprint to the race, it was going to be close. So just timing the run was going to be crucial.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. It was just me and him. So I knew that if I just timed it up and stayed behind him and waited patiently, I would get him at the end. And I think I just timed it just right coming out of 4.
And so second victory on the season, and like I said, no magic fuel tank this time around, so no post-race inspection that I think...
I'm still being investigated for that. We'll have to see what the decision is on that.
That's what I said. We're still trying to figure out how you made that one last. You came into this series with, I don't know how much Lotus 79 experience you had, but clearly it doesn't matter. You've made your mark on the championship so far. Only a couple of races left. We'll go road course racing for the next 3. How are you looking forward to those and closing off your season here in 2021?
I'm really excited to do the road courses. A couple of years ago I used to run Lotus 79, but then I really stopped to focus more on IndyCar. But I don't have much experience as of recently on the road course. I'm excited to see what I can do there.
Looking forward to seeing you in action, David. Congratulations on your second win of the campaign. Very well earned, and we'll see you then next time from the Silverstone Raceway.
Thank you.
So that was David Rodriguez in HyperX victory lane for the second time in only 4 races. Next up, it is a man who I'm sure is heartbroken. Craig Forsyth, beaten at the line by 1.5 hundredths of a second. Craig, my oh my, that was a close one, but ultimately, even if you didn't get the win, you showed just how strong you could be, +9 on the day.
no, I've got to admit, disappointed, but it's a victory because that was a great race and I love this track. That's such fun racing. Yeah.
Well, and two early cautions, Craig, that you managed to keep yourself out of. That must have been pretty heart-in-mouth moments for you there, because those were big incidents. I mean, we saw basically the entire field get caught up in either one of them. No damage for you there, and from there, you and David worked together to build up that advantage, pull away from the rest of the cars. You guys were ultra impressive in clean air to build that advantage up. How comfortable were you with this new tire update that we saw just a couple of weeks ago?
I really like it. Like you can be really aggressive on the tires. Like you saw the wheels so much through the corners on this, more than you'd think is okay, thanks to all the downforce you have. But yeah, no, I don't even know what to say. I told the guys. I may be running independent, but still, the race first guys and the turn 4 guys still talk to all them. And I told them I was going to be staying on the bottom to avoid any of the carnage. And I think I just barely got away. And I think the second one almost caught me. And it was only because I was down on the bottom at the time that I got away clean.
Well, you joined the series about a couple of races into the campaign, so next year will mark your first true rookie season. I mean, you must be looking forward to that and really taking, the full season to build yourself up. You've had, 11, 12 races to get familiar with the series, learn about all the drivers. I'm sure we're going to see big things from you next year. We've still got 4 races this year left to go.
Yeah, no, I'm really liking this car. This and the Speedway series have been 2 really enjoyable series for me to run in. I really like this car. This is a fun car to drive. People need to drive this car. You guys are missing out, anyone that's not driving this car.
Congratulations, Craig, because I'm sure you're disappointed, but I can't tell you how impressed we were at how you controlled this race as well. We'll see you next time from Silverstone Road Course Racing in October.
Absolutely. Stay safe.
Craig Forsyth, second place, first career podium in the Lionheart Retro Series. One of the bigger movers on the day, double digits gained for Alex Guyon. 08 car is standing by, and Alex, I gotta say, what a final lap that was for all of you guys in that battle for the podium position there. Must have been hot in mouth moments, but you managed to get through cleanly. Only about 200th in front of your teammate, David Sirwell.
Oh, guys, that was so intense. I don't know how I managed to survive this.
Well, you talk about surviving that. I think you might need a change of pants, because you got pretty close to a disaster in that second caution. We took a look at your onboard as cars went up into the catch fencing. You just about got through that one without any damage. How crazy were those opening couple of laps when we saw 3 and 4 wide basically every single time?
I'm pretty sure I wake up my dogs. I took a few seconds to realize that I went through that mess, and I saw cars everywhere, in front of me, behind me. A little miracle, really.
And so, I mean, Laval Motorsports, you guys came into this competition, Alex, with, I think, low expectations on the ovals, because road courses were definitely where we've seen you guys be strong, especially in the early stages. But in recent weeks, it's been strength to strength for you guys. I mean, David has taken 2 pole positions coming into this race, so makes it 3 in a row. It's just incredible. You guys have been really getting comfortable, and for you in particular now, your first podium, your first top 5 as well. How comfortable are you starting to feel with this Lotus 79?
To be honest, this podium feels like a win to me. In my first season with Lionheart, the learning curve is so long to take, and those guys are so quick. You have to fight your way to get in front, and even then you have to be lucky. Those guys are top of the list, really, and we are working the hardest we can, and with a little luck, the results are improving.
Well, we'll go road course racing for 3 in a row next time out. So good luck from Silverstone, good luck at Long Beach, and good luck from Road America, all building to that double points finale. You sit 12th in the points, so top 10 still very much on the cards. Congratulations on your podium, Alex.
Thank you, guys.
So that rounds out our podium interviews in a barn burner of a race to end things. It started off a little bit interestingly. I'm sure there's going to be some tough conversations, Andrew, given some of the aggressive driving that we saw. But super speedway racing, we'll see it once more to round things out. It's a long wait, though, between now and our next race. Almost a full month before we go to Silverstone. I can't wait. I mean, I just wish it wasn't almost 4 full weeks because, wow, the last couple of races here in the Retro Series have just been incredible. Fuel mileage races in some, wheel-to-wheel like we saw here today, but road course racing. Silverstone, Long Beach, and Road America, those are the next challenges for these drivers in the Lotus 79.
Absolutely. And that time off, as you mentioned, it's going to really wear on these drivers, I think, a little bit, because there are going to be some hurt feelings from today. It's one of those things that happens in this speedway style draft racing, is you do get a little bit of hurt feelings. There's going to be guys who are going to be stewing in it for a little bit longer than they probably hoped for, but then we get into a really nice rhythm of Silverstone, Long Beach, and Road America. Boom, 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 3 right in a row there. And it's going to be fascinating. Silverstone, the classic European track. Long Beach, the classic American street circuit. And Road America, that classic natural terrain road course from America. 3 very different tracks, but at the same time, 3 road courses that I think are going to be very, very good, fascinating races to watch.
So that wraps things up here then from the Wolverine State, where David Rodriguez, a winner for the 2nd time in the Lionheart Retro Series. We'd like to take the time to thank the partners of the Lionheart Series, those who helped put all of this on. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. For sim racers, the Buttkicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. Minus 273 is the premier name in carding glove. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a card or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing channel. And it's not just them, but so many more that make all of this happen. To learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, visit lionheartracingseries.com. And don't forget to join the virtual paddock by jumping into the series Discord and staying up to date with the latest coming and going from the drivers. We will be back in 4 weeks' time, but you can stay up to date with all things Lionheart by staying in touch with them on social media. ESTV has you covered for your esports needs, while sim racing action, look no further than racespottv. Subscribe to us on YouTube by hitting that red button and hit the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with the great sim racing series that we get to cover. While it's a long wait for the next Retro Series race, Round 15 takes us to Silverstone and the home of British motorsports. Next week is so busy here on racespottv with Lionheart action. First on Monday, the Speedway Series heads to Charlotte for the Karnox Charlotte 200, Round 15 in an ultra-competitive title fight that sees multiple drivers still in with a chance of winning that crown. Then 2 days later, the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park plays host to round 17 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, the Patrick Taylor Memorial Grand Prix. Adam Blocker will be back after missing 2 back-to-back races as he goes on a campaign for a 4th consecutive Lionheart Championship. That wraps things up, though, from the Wolverine State. For the entire team at racespottv, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. I've been joined by Andrew Kinsella in the commentary booth for today's action. Congratulations to David Rodriguez, winner here in the Wolverine State.